Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here with me, Alvin, here at Relab. I previously spoke about the difference between UI, UX design and product design. This time I'm gonna dive a little bit deeper into product designer and what type of skills do you need to be a product designer. I'm gonna see this from a couple of different angles. So I'll divide it into 3 different sections as usual. I'll use my iPad to try and explain this. And by the way, guys, if my writing is not readable, let me know, because I need some feedback. But otherwise, none of you have complained so far. That means it's a good sign. All right, let's get on to it. Okay, guys, so we're gonna have a look at 3 different segments here as a product designer. The first one are what I would see as the essential. So you will need this basic knowledge and basic tools with you when you get into the industry or wanted to get yourself into the door, basically. So the things that product designers definitely need are visual design skills. So visual design, what do I mean by visual design? As usual, it's knowing what layout is and how to execute a layout, design patterns, what else? Typography, and also colors. And obviously there's more than this, but just to give you some example, these are the stuff that is about visual designs, basically basic design elements, and specifically digital design elements. Other than visual design, you'll also need to know things around UI principles, user interface principles. What are the things under UI principles? It'll be things like accessibility, making sure that things are readable, accessible, plain text, for example, in a web rather than images and stuff like that. But there's a lot of articles around it that you could have a look. But UI principles will definitely include accessibility, responsive design, what else? Interaction design. So these are some examples that you can think of that falls under UI principles. And the other thing is design and prototyping. So prototyping is a big thing for product designers because oftentimes you will need to prototype your products to test it, or before even building it, or when you're running design thinking workshops or design sprints, or basically helping developers during their agile process. Design and prototyping and design is actually very important. So design and prototyping is another essential. Prototyping is another essential skills that product designers will need when they get into the industry. What are tools under prototyping or design? It's basically, you'll know things like Figma or Adobe XD, Sketch, prototyping, stitching up prototypes, stuff like that. There'll be InVision, and so on and so forth. InVision. And you get the idea of all of this. But yeah, basically, when we look at product designer basic and essential skills, it's things around visual design. That's one. Understanding UI design, UI principles is very important. And also prototyping, being able to prototype your products or your designs is very important. So that's one thing that I would categorize as execution. So I'd call this execute. It's being able to work with other designers, with design leaders, with creative directors, to be able to help them execute, be on the tool, and be able to deliver and help the team, basically. The next thing to look into are things that I would categorize as being a little bit more strategic. So these are things like design thinking. So we have done videos about design sprints and design thinking, obviously. If you've been following us, I will go and have a look at that. But essentially, it's being able to solve a problem, something that is quite complex, and try to make it simple for the user at the end of the day in the form of a product in this case. So running design thinking workshops is another skills that is, I would say, quite important these days for a product designer to own with them. And the next thing is to be able to product or project manage. Now, there is a product management role, and there is a product manager oftentimes in a team. But as a designer, if you're able to know what the product management or project management principles are, that's going to create an even higher value for you. So I'll just write down product or project. They're two different things, but for the purposes of this, I'll just combine them. Project management fundamentals, I would say. You don't have to be the expert in it, but understanding how it works is very important. Because at the end of the day, product designers work with product owners, product managers, project managers a lot of the times, that having empathy towards them and knowing exactly what those guys do is very important. As a matter of fact, I have had scenarios before where a product designer feels like product design isn't quite their forte, that they've decided that actually I'm much better in product management, and they've decided to jump into that instead. But having some level of knowledge around product management is actually quite important and very valuable, I would say. And the other thing is research. So when it comes to research for a product designer, you'd be thinking about user research or business research. Business research. So a lot of the times, product designers are trying to help teams innovate, trying to work with stakeholders and product owners and product managers to innovate a product or to iterate a product. And oftentimes they will need to be in the intersection of user needs and business needs. So understanding both sides is actually very important for product designers. There are tools and ways in how to do this, including design thinking stuff. And the next thing is being able to facilitate co-design activities. So when I say co-design, it means you're facilitating a workshop where you run a co-design activity, whether it's with stakeholders, clients, team members, developers, or whatnot, depending on what your environment is like. But being a product designer who co-designs means you're very open to understanding what others think visually, and give them the room and opportunity to be able to draw up sketches or just basically show their ideas, talk about their ideas, demo their ideas, that you as the designer will be able to grab inspiration out of it and be able to inform you on what design decisions you can make after this. So that's actually a very powerful thing to do. So I would categorize all of this stuff as strategize. So we were coming from a product designer who was able to execute into being a product designer who is now able to strategize. And this is where you level up a little bit in your career as well, oftentimes. The next natural thing to do is to be able to be part of a management team. So this includes looking after things like team synergies and teamwork, basically. So teamwork, if you're familiar with some of the jargons as well, a lot of tech startups and product designers will talk a lot about being in a tribe or being in an ecosystems where they have basically different types of groups where they work together, different types of channels where they work, they cross path between each other, and they tend to collaborate together, and that's what teamwork means. That means you're able to work with other people who are not necessarily just designers, but also developers, engineers, managers, and whatnot. So teamwork is very important to be managed. The next thing is creative problem solving. That is more than just design problems. Oftentimes it actually relates to the business problem or the product problem or even the user's problem. So thinking about things in a bit more holistic manner. So creative problem solving. And this is where it's actually very related to your design thinking foundations, because using the very same tools and principles, you will be able to solve problems that are more than just design problems. The next thing is leadership and management. So leadership and management. And these days, you will find roles where CEOs actually come from a design background. It's no longer just the CFOs or the CTOs, but there's a chief design officer role these days as well. Design has been so important these days that it actually affects the business and it affects the business roadmap and where things go. So in this third category, I would call this to lead, basically. So now, if you look at this, basically you come from a designer who's able to execute and be a very valuable team member as part of the team, and be able to strategize after that, where you interact a little bit more with different stakeholders or clients. And again, whether you're in an agency or you're an internal team member, being able to strategize and use principles that are proven is actually very valuable. And that's generally, and the better you get at that, and obviously coming with some intangible skills as well, being great with people, having empathy and all that stuff, then you will be a great leader. As a matter of fact, a great potential to be a leader. And that's where you get into the next stage, being a design leader. Okay, so I hope that's useful for you, and otherwise I'll see you in the next video. And if you haven't subscribed already, and if you enjoy these videos, please do so. Leave us a comment as well, tell us how we're doing, it's very important for us. Okay, thank you guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.